Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is your host with the biggest nose, JC Courtside, coming at y'all today on Monday, November 17th. We had 3 overtimes last night. 4, technically, if you count the double OT with Chicago and Utah. Great weekend of NBA basketball. You already know the Pistons won again. We won't be talking about them much at all because they only had 1 game over the weekend. But if you guys click this episode, I'd like to say welcome back. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the winners and losers of the NBA weekend. Okay, so we're going to be reviewing what they did over the weekend, reviewing their last few games, and we're going to talk about my stance on these specific teams. Okay, so before we get into any of that, guys, be sure to drop a like if you are watching on YouTube. Watching or listening on YouTube, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. If you're on TikTok, if you're part of the live crew, be sure to drop a like wherever you're watching, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere. And if you are a podcast listener, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. We haven't had a review in like 2 weeks, so if y'all can just do me a major favor, if you are listening on Spotify or Apple, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'd say a lot happened over the weekend. And we're going to be talking about most of it. A couple injuries that, have resurfaced. Paolo Banchero, we talked about it. Jalen Brunson, we talked about it. Zachary Richache had a very scary fall last night. I hope he's okay. And we had our first coach get fired. So we're going to start with the winners of the weekend. And at first, I have the Houston Rockets. Now, this team listen, I know some people who watch and listen, they're probably a Rocket fan, and I have not been showing any love whatsoever to this team. And I'll tell you why. It's because I wasn't sure what this team was going to look like as this season progressed. So I wanted to wait until we had a couple weeks under our belt before I spoke on this team that needs to be spoken about. The Houston Rockets are currently the 3rd seed in the West. They're tied with the 4th, but they have the tiebreaker. They are on a 4-game winning streak, and they won 2 games over this weekend. Last night being in overtime, one of the many overtimes we had last night against the Orlando Magic. I'm not going to talk much about the Magic, but I would like to start talking real quick. They're playing better without Paolo Banchero. I know they were missing Jalen Suggs last night. I think if they had Suggs, they probably would have won that. But I called it. They're playing better without Banchero. That's not to say that Banchero is a bad player by any means. That's just telling you right there. Paolo cannot play off ball. He can't sit in the corner. He can't sit on the wing. He can't sit in the dunker spot. So he needs the ball. The issue is when he's on the ball, he's got no bag. He either pulls up for a trash midi, trash 3, or uses his actual size and takes it to the hoop. So Franz Wagner and everybody else is playing great on that side. But unfortunately, they fell in overtime to the Houston Rockets. They almost had a huge comeback right at the end where they choked that inbound pass, but they managed to get it done by hitting Alperen Sengun in the paint. Now, I'll say this is a horrible game from Amen Thompson offensively. Defensively, he still did his thing. He had 12 points and 10 rebounds. I'm not going to be talking too much about the specific game, but things that I want to note about this game and moving forward are a couple key points. There were multiple times at the end of this game, Durant hit a double tween through the leg, step back 3 that tied the game at 100 points. And then he hit that other pull-up midi that basically sealed the game. That is why you trade for Kevin Durant. He showed you last night with 35 points why you trade for Kevin Durant. He also hit that other huge 3. I forgot. That is why you trade for Kevin Durant. Now, I can say this confidently right now. That's why you trade for Kevin Durant, because there hasn't been any drama. That black cloud that follows Kevin Durant every year has not resurfaced just yet in Houston. So it's going well. It's going well out in Houston. And I think you need to enjoy it while you got it. One big thing is Alperen Sengun. 30 points, 12 rebounds. Right? Reed Shepherd had a good game off the bench, hit 2 clutch free throws at the end. The major thing about the Houston Rockets is I've never seen Kevin Durant on any team where he can pass it to the low block, let the low block cook, and if they get doubled or tripled, they kick it out for Durant for an open 3. Durant is being left open right now. Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, is being left open because he's next to Alperen Şengün. This kid is different. He's a monster. I expect him to only improve. He and Durant both played 45 minutes last night. I think I had Alperen Şengün at my number 5 for best, power forwards. Yeah, for the best power forwards. But I think he's moving up. I think he's moving up each day. Technically center, right? Because they've been using him and Steven Adams, but he's technically a center in today's NBA. This kid is different, man. This kid is different. He's going to be dominating the NBA for a long time. The thing I love is when Alperen Şengün brings the ball down the court and allows the offense to run through him, just like they do in Denver with Nikola Jokic. I think the Houston Rockets are definitely my number one winner of the weekend because of what they're doing and how they're doing it. They are winning dominantly in most of these games. This was overtime, but it felt like the entire way the Magic were trying to steal this game, even though they let in assists, they let in steals, they let in blocks, they let in least turnovers, they let off points off turnovers, they let in fast break points. They even let in second chance points, which the Rockets typically lead. The Houston Rockets are second in points behind Miami. I think Miami's still number 1. First in rebounding, 9th in steals, 2nd in field goals made. So and they're number 1 in 3-point percentage at 42.5%. They're shooting way above league average, and that's scary. They're not taking a whole lot of threes, but they're hitting them. They're the 30th in the league at 3-point shots attempted, but they're number 1 in hits. So the Houston Rockets right now, I think everyone should be paying attention to them because even without a point guard, even without Fred VanVleet, we'll see how this pans out in the playoffs. We haven't truly seen Amen Thompson in the playoffs. You know, typically a player needs 1, 2, maybe even 3. Giannis needed like 5 playoff appearances for him to get used to it. So sometimes players need to get used to and accustomed to the playoffs because the way they're playing Amen Thompson, that's not going to be sustainable in the playoffs. The way that he's somewhat playing like last night when he wasn't feeling it and they were playing through Şengün, which I think they should do more often. He looked like a Ausar out there. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between Amen and Ausar last night. Obviously they look the same. They're twins. But with Amen Thompson, when he doesn't bring the ball up the court, he either sits corner and he's not afraid to shoot the 3, but he's going to miss it. His percentage is awful. But last night he was hanging out in the dunker's position a lot. So when Alperen Şengün is posted up or when Durant is at the mid-range, they always see Amen Thompson cutting from the dunker spot and getting a wide open dunk or lay. That looked exactly like Ausar Thompson. That's how we use Ausar when he's not having a great on-ball game. So I'd like to see more of them running through Şengün, but the Rockets are good. The Rockets are really good, man. I'm surprised the Pistons beat them the way they did early into the season. They're a very good team, and they are like that second tier in the West. You know, you got the Thunder and Nuggets there in the first tier, and then you got the Rockets right there. And I think between the Rockets, Lakers, and Spurs, I think the Rockets still have the edge a little bit on those teams. Just because their size. I mean, they're massive. They are absolutely massive. So that's why I have the Houston Rockets as my number 1 winner of the weekend. Josh in the Twitch stream, part of the live crew, he just said Unk still got it. He's talking about Durant. He definitely still has it. Now, up next, I have the Atlanta Hawks. And I have not talked about this team. Same as the Rockets, like nearly as I should be. The Atlanta Hawks are on a 5-game winning streak right now, all without Trae Young. They beat the Lakers by 20. Very impressive win. They beat the Clippers by 3. They smacked the Kings by 33. I mean, everybody's smacking the Kings by 33. They beat the Jazz by 11. And then they beat the Suns by 2 last night in overtime. They look better without their best player. I couldn't have said it better myself. Newsome in the Twitch stream. Again, if you guys want to catch these live, we do these live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to get involved with the live crew, be sure to come through to Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you want. We're live 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, except tomorrow on Tuesday because, yeah, it's just not happening tomorrow. But we're still doing a pod, obviously. They look better without their best player. And it's pretty simple as to why this is happening. Jalen Johnson has leveled up. Jalen Johnson is looking like the Jalen Johnson that I expected going into this year, and he's only getting better. Last night, almost another triple-double. He had 25 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 9 for 13 from the field. Zachary Richache was having like one of his best games of the season, and he went out due to a scary injury. I hope he's okay. And I would like to just say, Onyeka Okongwu, I would like to formally apologize right here in front of everybody. I was not familiar with your game, but these last few games, oh my God. I think it was 3 games ago, Onyeka Okongwu hit 8 threes. Last night he didn't go crazy, but he had 27 points, 3 threes. This was Nickeil Alexander-Walker's game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's game. I had an extra S there. The Hawks were down 20. And then they outscored the Suns, I believe, by 20 points in the fourth quarter. They scored 47. The Phoenix Suns gave up 47 points in the fourth quarter. And that's unfortunate because the Suns were also on a 5-game winning streak, but they lost to the Hawks last night in OT. This is all without Trae Young. This is all with Trae Young on the bench. The Hawks are looking good. Now, I think it's pretty obvious. Trae Young is obviously on the trade block. Obviously. They couldn't come to an extension last summer. And they would like to not just allow him to walk away. He's going to want too much money, and the Hawks aren't going to give it to him. On top of that, I think Kristaps could be packaged with a Trae Young because they are shopping Kristaps Tingus Pingus. Okay? So when you look at this team, when you have Krejci off the bench, you got Keaton Wallace, you got Luke Kennard, you got Mohamed Gay, and then you have a great young core of NAW, Richache, Jalen Johnson, Onyeka, and Dyson Daniels. This team could be scary. And right now, they are pretty scary. 5-game winning streak is nothing to gawk at. I know the teams that they've beat aren't that great. You got the Clippers, the Kings, the Jazz, Phoenix, mostly below 500 teams, other than the Lakers. And they are taking care of business, man. They are 9-5 and 4th in the Eastern Conference right now. Now, they're middle of the pack in points scored. They're bottom at rebounding, but they're number 1 in assists per game, number 3 in steals, and that's because of Dyson Daniels, and 10th in blocks. So their defense is there. They're suffocating teams. And when their offense is clicking like this, there's not a whole lot you can do to this team. So I think I would like to see Trae Young being dealt. I doubt it's going to happen in the regular season. I think this is going to be more so of an offseason trade where Trae Young actually has time to get familiar with the team that they trade him to, right? So when you look at this team, I feel like they will trade Trae Young somewhere where he wants to be. The issue with that is he's going to have to sign a deal with whoever they trade him to. Otherwise, like, he cannot pick up his player option, or he could just leave after he picks up his player option. So I think this is going to be a very, very interesting season for the Atlanta Hawks. I'll be honest, I don't see this being sustainable. I don't think the Hawks are a top 4 team in the East, even with how weak the East is. I don't see it. I think they might fall. If they get Trae Young back and they get Tingus back and they look healthy and they look good, then maybe. But I think Trae Young era is over in Atlanta, unfortunately. And that's a great question, Twitch chat. Who wants him for the amount of money that he wants? So Trae Young isn't going to be Trae Young. If he were to get his money, the most money he would get would be in Atlanta, right? Atlanta's not going to give it to him. And then you have to start looking around the NBA. Who's going to give him that money? And I think this is going to be a very rude awakening for Trae Young, because what he's going to realize is, oh my God, I'm a short guard that gets injured. My 3-point percentage is at an all-time low right now, when that's what I thrived at. Yes, my playmaking's up, but my playmaking's only up because I'm trying to pad stats because my 3-point shooting has abandoned me. So when you look, I think he's got to take a real long, deep look in the mirror. And he's got to think, wow, I'm a liability on defense. I pad stats on unneeded assists. You should be a scorer. That's who you are. If you don't get fouled, you're not going to convert in the paint. This is a tough time to be a small guard in the NBA that foul baits, but doesn't foul bait to the extent that Jalen Brunson does. And you're also not a big guard in a big guard era. Jalen Brunson's big, width-wise, right? So he can bully his defender. Cade Cunningham is 6'6", big. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 6'6", he's big. So when you look around the NBA and you see a guard that plays zero defense, and then you look around his team and they all play defense, there's a weak link in this lineup. And what team needs that at this point? You could look at Dallas because their defense is good, but they have Kyrie Irving. You could see it. You could look at Houston. I think he would be pretty good in Houston. Honestly, I think Trae Young would fit the best with Houston. Houston or Minnesota. Because both of those teams are defensive oriented. You've tried it in Atlanta. This is the best team you have now. I think it's time to move on from Trae Young. TikTok says rank the Jalen's. That's a good video. I think we should do that sometime soon. There's a lot of good Jalen's in the NBA. You got Jalen Johnson just off the dome. Jalen Johnson, J-Dub over in Oklahoma. You got Jalen Duren. You got Jalen Green. There's a lot of good Jalen's. Maybe we should do a video on that. Okay, so yeah, Atlanta is my second winner of the weekend. I think it's time to move on from Trae. It's not too much. I see the live chat and TikTok telling me it's too much of a sample size, it being 15 games. No, it's not. You can look at last year. You can look at the year before. Trae Young is on a downward spiral offensively. That's why he's mainly going for assists right now. His offensive game has completely abandoned him. He's resorted to foul baiting because he can't convert in the paint, and his three-point shot has completely abandoned. This is not a sample size. That is literally the main reason why Atlanta did not extend Trae Young. He wants too much money for what they're worth. This is not a sample size. This is literally over 130 games of advanced metrics. And that's why Atlanta didn't extend him. Let's move on to my final winner of the weekend, and that is the Golden State Warriors. We were talking down on y'all when you guys got routed by the Oklahoma City Thunder. They lost to the Thunder by 24, and it wasn't even that close. It was not even that close. They then came back. They won on Wednesday in San Antonio. And then on Friday, they won for the in-season tournament in San Antonio. Back-to-back games. And then on Sunday, they routed the Pelicans, which, no surprise. They're on a 3-game winning streak, which is very, very good. Kuminga is out, and all of a sudden now they have somewhat leveled up, right? They have somewhat leveled up. The Golden State Warriors right now, I feel like Kuminga isn't... It's Kuminga and Pods. And I'll tell you what, I'm fully out on Pods. I'm fully out. I am not a big fan. I think he should never start. I think off the bench, if he can be a spark plug the way he did on the against the Pels, he had 19 points, 8 for 13 shooting. I've said it multiple times in previous podcasts. I feel for Jonathan Kuminga because he's being scapegoated here. It's like the team doesn't want to play with Kuminga for some reason when he's quite literally their second best offensive player on their team. So as far as like ISO goes, my issue with the Golden State Warriors is they did smack, they beat the Spurs twice. Those are huge wins. Those are absolutely massive wins. I think they're getting a lot of like, excuse me, great games from Will Richard, the rookie. He has looked absolutely incredible. Curry did not have a good night at all last night. He was shot 2 for 11. But I think we all know Curry shows up for big games. He doesn't care about the Pelicans. He dropped, I believe, 42 in the first game against the Spurs, and then 49 against the Spurs in the very next game. The Golden State Warriors right now, yes, they're old. Yes, they're slow. But if you can get this sort of bench production, Moses Moody, 32 points. He's been starting since Kuminga's been out, right? You got 19 off the bench from Pods. You got 6 from Al. You got 11 from Buddy Hield. Finally, Buddy Hield is shooting, right? This is just looking so iffy with the Warriors. They're 9-6. They're by no means a bad team in the NBA right now. They're not. My issue with them is the inconsistency I'm seeing with a Curry with a Jimmy. I think Jimmy has been their most most consistently inconsistent player on this team. Sometimes he looks engaged. Sometimes he looks like he doesn't want to be there, which maybe I'm just seeing that because it's Jimmy Butler and I'm scarred from like all the times he didn't want to be where he was in Miami, in Philly, in Minnesota, in Chicago. So like maybe I'm just scarred. Maybe he's really enjoying himself. I know he likes being teammates with Buddy. And then Draymond Green, chippy as always, setting those offensive foul screens as always, even though they're not calling them. The reason the Warriors are the third winner of the week is because I basically gave up on them last week. I was like, wow, there's levels to this. And there still are levels to this. I don't think you want to see the Warriors in the playoffs. If they can avoid the play-in, they're cooking. They need to avoid the play-in. The Warriors cannot be in the play-in again. They can't. And when you look at the standings now, you got to somewhat think, are they better than the Timberwolves? I don't think so. Are they better than the Spurs? Yeah, especially come playoff time. Are they better than the Lakers? One team has Luka Doncic and LeBron James. The other one has Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. In 2025, I don't know. They're not better than the Nuggets. They're not better than the Thunder. So when you look at this Warriors team, it's how good can they be? And I think they just got to miss the play-in. They got to make the playoffs, and they got to move on from there. Because in a 7-game series, I do not want to play the Golden State Warriors at all. At all. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a very, very interesting rest of the season we have. Okay, before we move on to our losers of the weekend, right? Because we got to talk about the losers. We still have to talk about the honorable mentions, honorable winners, right? The honorable winners of the weekend. I see people in the TikTok asking if we're live anywhere else. Yes, we are live on Twitch and YouTube, but the YouTube is Jay-Z Courtside, right? If you guys want to tune in any of those platforms, feel free. Again, podcast listeners, YouTube watchers, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review. I want to talk about the honorable mentions very quickly for winners of the weekend. I got to talk about my Detroit Pistons, man. I got to talk about them just briefly. They have won back-to-back games. So they beat the Chicago Bulls by 11 without, we already talked about this, without 7 of their rotational pieces, missing all of their starters. They were missing Cade. They were missing Ivy. They were missing Asar. They were missing Tobias. They were missing Stu. They were missing Duren. They were missing Marcus Sasser. And then their bench steps up. Dennis Jenkins, G League 2-way demon, comes in, carries this team alongside Paul Reed, Duncan Robinson, right? And then the very next game on Friday, they were playing the Philadelphia 76ers with Tyrese Maxey doing what he's doing. And the Pistons won again. 21 points from late pickup into the season, Javonte Green. Woo is his nickname. Woo. Dennis Jenkins again. Give this kid a contract. Give him a contract. Would you guys believe that Dennis Jenkins is the same age as Cade Cunningham? I think he's a month older than Cade. This kid, listen, trade Marcus Sasser. I know he's still hurt. Trade Marcus Sasser. Trade him. We got our backup point guard. Finally. The Pistons have finally got a diamond in the rough. The Pistons never find their needle in a haystack player. Their last guy that they found that became extremely serviceable to them was Lindsey Hunter back in the early 2000s. Before that, Dennis Rodman. It has been a long time since the Pistons found a player and developed them through the G League. He played 4 years in college. The kid is averaging like 21 points and 9 assists right now in his first 2 ever NBA starts. Dennis freaking Jenkins. Paul Reed is balling. Duncan Robinson is balling. Karis LeVert is balling. Stu came back in this win against Philadelphia, and he helped beyond belief. 14.7 rebounds. He had a 3. The Pistons, man, I got to give them credit where credit is due. Tonight, the Pistons play the Indiana Pacers, and I think they have upgraded Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren to questionable, I think. And Asar Thompson is probable, I think. I don't know what. The Pistons are horrible at disclosing injuries. The Pistons play the Indiana Pacers tonight, and they could go for 10 wins in a row. They could. And I said, if the Pistons go on a 10-game winning streak, I am going to do the longest Detroit basketball possible. I'm going to do the longest Detroit basketball possible. You know, the yeah, boy. I'm going to do the same thing, but for Detroit basketball. If they win 10 in a row. In my entire life, I've never seen the Pistons this good. In my entire life. Obviously, I'm not counting the early 2000s. I wasn't coherent enough to watch those. I was just feeding off the emotions that my mom was feeding off of. You know, my mom hated the Spurs. My mom hated the Lakers. My grandfather hated the Lakers. So I was like, you know, I was feeding off their emotions. I'm sure I was crying when the Pistons lost, but I didn't understand what was going on. So to see what they're doing now, it's a sight to see. I feel like tonight they might lose. It feels like a trap game against the Indiana Pacers. With how bad the Pacers are right now, I hope the Pistons can pull it out. I have a weird suspicion that they're going to keep Cade and Duren out for this game, though. I have a weird feeling about it. I just think since they've won 2 in a row, I feel like they've won 2 in a row without any of the players. I feel like they might just say, hey, we did it twice. We can do it again. And I think that'll be their downfall. Pascal Siakam will drop 60 on us. No, my mom was not hating Tim Duncan. My mom actually hated Ginobili. My mom is like the biggest Ginobili hater ever. Hates Ginobili. Our next honorable mention is the Denver Nuggets. I don't have much to say other than I picked them to win it all. Everybody can attest to that. I picked them to win it all. My God, this is the best the Nuggets have ever looked. Ever. Forget their championship season. This is the best they've ever looked. This team is monstrous. Monstrous. That Minnesota game, utter freaking domination. Tim Hardaway Jr. I told y'all. I said Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to look like prime Steph Curry on the Denver Nuggets. I said it before the season started. I said 2 of the most underrated free agent pickups both happened in Denver. It was Jonas Valanciunas. Now Jokic can sit out and they won't get killed. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. He was not doing any of this in Detroit. You know why? Because they didn't have Jokic on Detroit Pistons. So the gravity that Cade demands versus Jokic demands, bro, this guy, Tim Hardaway Jr., is shooting lights out. 23 points against Minnesota. 23 for Jamal Murray as well. 27 for Nikola Jokic. Look at the starting lineup, man. 23 points for Aaron Gordon. The Denver Nuggets are my pick. It's my pick. It's literally OKC or it's going to be Denver. Now, out the East, obviously the Pistons are going to meet whoever they verse in the finals. We all know that, right? We all know that for sure. We all know. Now, let us continue with our first loser of the weekend. The Miami Heat. This is tough. So, my personal favorite occurrence that happens every year is seeing who's in the play-in, right? And it's not the play-in if the Heat and Bulls are not together in the play-in. My life is complete right now. I could die right now and die happily. The Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls are both in the play-in. And peace is restored. I'm joking. I'm rooting for the Miami Heat. I want them to succeed. I have never hated on the Miami Heat. I want them to continue I want them to turn it around. The issue with the Miami Heat is I called it. Their schedule is tough from here on out. And this is what's going to happen when you're missing your 2 best players. They dropped against the Cleveland Cavaliers and they dropped against the New York Knicks on Friday. And they have the Knicks again tonight, right? So when you look at this team, they're going to beat the Knicks tonight. I hope I'm not jinxing them, but they're going to beat the Knicks. The Knicks are without Jalen Brunson. The Knicks are also without OG Anunoby. They're going to beat the New York Knicks. That nobody should debate that. If the Heat do not win this game, they will be purely outcoached by Mike Brown. They should not lose this. Unless Karl-Anthony Towns decides to go for 40 again, they should not be losing this game. So I want to talk about this game specifically because this is what I think this season has sort of developed into. It's Norman Powell, shoot it every time you touch it. They cannot touch, and that's the main issue. It's touching the basketball. Missing Bam Adebayo, they are somewhat getting killed. They're getting killed. They gave up 20 offensive rebounds in their last game. Landry Shamet had his career night. They need Bam on the offensive glass. They need Bam on the defensive glass. Let's look at just this New York game as a sample size, right? The Knicks only out-rebound. The Knicks only out-rebounded Miami by 5. But they got 5 more offensive rebounds. That's where it came from. Okay? They got out-assisted by 2. Bunch of turnovers. And they were up 7. It's not like they were getting dominated throughout the entire game. The issue with the Miami Heat is they need to run. They need to spread the floor. They need to run. And when you see this team look as lackadaisical as they did mostly in the second half of this game, or the second quarter, I guess that's when New York went up. The Miami Heat don't have that firepower from one guy that they do defensively, right? I already mentioned that they're missing their 2 best players. It goes to show who in the live crew don't listen. My biggest problem with the Miami Heat, I'm watching a lot of Heat games. I'd say I've probably watched about 85% of the Miami Heat games this season, right? And I can tell you off rip, Khalil Ware, this guy sort of reminds me of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope back when he was on the Pistons, when he was young. This is just hold. I know it's a crazy comparison. Khalil Ware is so consistently inconsistent. I'm watching him, and I've said this about a couple players before. He looks like a giraffe on ice skates. He looks lost 80 to 90% of the time. I don't know if he'll ever be a starting center in this league. I hope I look dumb by saying this. Davion Mitchell had a bad game. Pelle Larsson did what Pelle Larsson can do. Norman Powell can only take you so far. He had 38 points. Him and Davion Mitchell were the only guys that were plus on this game. Andrew Wiggins was minus 15. It was his worst game of the season. I've talked about this man. Let me cool off Khalil Ware, right? Let me cool off Khalil Ware. My main enemy on the Miami Heat comes off the bench. He's got a nose bigger than mine. His name is Nikola Jovic. Bro, just ship him to Denver. Jokic wanted Jovic on the Nuggets. Just trade him. I think they'll do it. I think they'll do it because Jokic wants to play with Jovic. Bro, Jovic sucks. I mean that disrespectfully. He sucks. The ball touches his hands, it's not leaving it. Sort of like Ty Jerome, who's on the Grizzlies now. If they touch the ball, they're probably not going to swing it. He has 4 assists, but it's only because that they genuinely did not allow him to shoot, right? I appreciate all the follows right now on TikTok and YouTube, guys. Again, we do stream on Twitch as well. So my biggest issue with the Miami Heat is that they can drag a bum team and they can still play well till the final buzzer. I haven't talked about Jaime Jaquez yet. It wasn't his best game. Like he put the ball in the basket, but that's not the way it goes. The way the Miami Heat are winning right now is by just swinging that ball and playing a motion offense, right? If you sit down and I sit and I take notes on all the games I watch. And the biggest note I always have at the very top of this list is Eric Spoelstra is a G. Because the way that they use their offense, the way they play their offense is something that the other 29 teams in this NBA are not replicating. For everybody watching, for everybody listening, what is the most used basketball play in history? It's 3 words. We all know what it is. Pick and roll. Or in today's modern NBA, pick and pop. Very good TikTok. The Miami Heat not just lead the league in least amount of pick and rolls this season. What we're seeing from the Miami Heat, we have never seen in modern NBA history. You have to look all the way back into the 80s with the Boston Celtics, arguably the greatest team of all time. Arguably, that's why I don't agree with it, but the old heads will tell you that the 86 team is the greatest of all time. They were successful with the motion offense. That's how far back you have to look. Is that 40 years ago? So 40 years ago, this offensive scheme was defined. It was the best. Everybody tried copying it. It didn't work. So now when you see the Miami Heat running the similar offense motion, it looks great. The thing that they're lacking most right now is not the pick and roll. They don't need it right now. They're lacking Bam Adebayo on the glass. They're lacking Bam Adebayo with star power. They're lacking Tyler Hero for just pure and utter scoring. You cannot rely. I love Norman Powell as much as the next guy, but the way that this team is working right now, their defense is okay. I mean, they're giving up 130, 140 almost every single night. Their defense needs to improve, right? They can't just expect to outshoot opponents every single night. And I'll tell you why I believe the Miami Heat will fold under pressure in the playoffs. This is not a hating take. In the playoffs, you typically see a trend of scoring drop by about 40%. Games that you typically see finish in the regular season like this one, where it's 140 to 132, those games wrap up at about 100 to 105, right? So when you look at this team, do you see the Miami Heat just purely outscoring teams and just winning games in the playoffs? Because I personally don't. That doesn't happen. People say that defense wins championships. Nico Harrison said defense wins championships. The only offense we've ever seen truly win with offense only are the 2015 Warriors. And even then, they still had defense. Thank you, TikTok. I actually want to shout out this guy, Matt, in the TikTok. He said, as a Heat fan, I don't think you're hating at all. I appreciate it, bro, because I'm a huge fan of the Miami Heat. I'm a huge fan of the Miami Heat. And I know what I'm talking about. I have watched almost every single Heat game. I will say, every single Miami Heat game this year, I have watched at least a quarter. Multiple games, I've watched the entire games. So I have a couple of Heat fans on my Twitch stream right now that are telling me that I'm completely wrong right now. And that's okay. Their defense, I don't see improving. You tell me that their defense will get better. I highly disagree, because when you insert Tyler Hero into the lineup, your defense automatically drops tenfold. Tyler Hero is a defensive liability. And when you look at this offense, there's only one basketball on the court. So something that Norman Powell likes to do is he likes to end every possession with a shot, right? So when you look at this team and you swing it to Norman Powell's not going to pass you. He had 38 points and 0 assists the other night. So when you look at Norman Powell and Tyler Hero on the same court, on the same team, I get worried. I get extremely worried. Forget defense for a second. Let's just talk offense. What's going to happen now? Because do you remember that motion offense that I was just referring to? How they swing the ball, they don't rely on pick and rolls. There's one player on the Miami Heat that relies on pick and rolls. You know who that is? I'll give you a hint. He's white. Well, they traded Duncan Robinson to the Pistons, so there's only a couple left. Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero relies on pick and rolls. I'm talking heavily relies on pick and rolls. So before I judge the Miami Heat, they are the number one loser of the weekend. But they are by no means a loser going into the rest of this year. I cannot judge this team properly until they get their two best players back. I'll end it with that. I can talk about what they're doing now, but I can't talk about what they look like in the future. I cannot judge this team until they get Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo back. If you ask me, stay the hell away from Ja Morant. Please, Pat Riley. I know you're going senile. Please do not poison your team with Ja Morant. If you are going to go for a point guard, I think the only one viable is Trae Young. And even then, you got to trade Hero, and you got to probably trade Jovic as well. And maybe you'll get Tingus Pingus and Trey in return. The only point guard that should be on your radar is Trae Young. Let's move on. I've talked about the Miami Heat far too long because I got a lot of Heat fans in the TikTok, a lot of Heat fans in the Twitch. Let's move on to the Chicago Bulls. This is not going to take much long. This is not going to take that long as the Miami Heat one. I'm not saying they should trade for Trae Young. I'm just saying, please do not go for Ja Morant. Let's move on to the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are doing exactly what I predicted, and I think everybody else predicted. They have lost 5 games straight. They have lost 6 out of the last 7 games. The Chicago Bulls, listen, they were lucky, and I said they were lucky. In the beginning of the season, I said, please, when the Chicago Bulls were 5-0, I said, please do me a huge favor. I'm not a big stat guy. I'm a big, eye test guy. So when I'm looking at this team, they were not passing the eye test. They had a mediocre defense. They had an above average offense. But their interior defense was abysmal. And the main reason is because they were defending the perimeter knowing that Nikola Vucevic cannot guard the paint. They said, okay, we know we can't defend the paint, so we're just going to outmath you. We're going to score threes. We're not going to let you score threes. We're going to force you to just take twos. And it was working. For the first 5 games of this year, that was working. They were actually outmathing their opponents. Or were they? Technically, yes. But technically, no. If you looked at the stats of those first 5 games that they played, you would notice a pattern in their opponents. The first 5 games of the season, the teams that they played against were averaging 21% from the 3-point land. Can you just hold on? That's not a typo. Let that sink in very quickly. I'm going to repeat it one more time. The Chicago Bulls their opponents were averaging 21% from 3-point land against them during their 5-0 streak. Do you know the last time there's been a stretch of having your opponent shoot 21% from 3? 1980s. It was 83 to be exact. They were, I hate to say it, but they were lucky. They were lucky that their opponents, that they were forcing to take very contested threes. They were lucky that their opponents were missing all of them. I think the Pistons shot 9% from deep against them for the entire first 3 quarters until they came back from a 23-point deficit and almost won. So plain and simple, the Chicago Bulls are right back where they belong. They're in the play-in. And I think that's probably where they'll finish out for the rest of the year. The thing about the Chicago Bulls is I hate their management. I despise their management, actually. Honestly, their management pisses me the hell off. And the main reason is because they just want to stay mediocre. They just want to stay competitive enough so that they can sell tickets, so that they can defend that brand. Because we all know the most popular logo around the world, as far as a sports team goes, is the Chicago Bull. That's the most popular logo on any sports team around the entire world, excluding soccer. So when you see this, when you see the Chicago Bulls just continue to be average, continue to be mid, you start to question the integrity of this front office. Is it really just to sell tickets? It's looking like it. Because this team, you should have traded Vucevic years ago. I like Giddey, but you should have traded Vucci baby a long time ago. We're spending too much time on these guys when you should be focused on developing Montez Buzelis. Plain and simple. You should be focusing on Montez. Their team has great key pieces, but what I'm struggling to believe in is their longevity. I don't see Kevin Huerter being a Bull for long. I don't see Patrick Williams staying there for much longer. The Chicago Bulls are a depressing team, man. They're a very depressing team because as good as we all, I've said this so many times, there's 3 teams in the NBA that when they're good, the NBA is at its best. Okay? I'm sure you guys can guess those 3 teams. The New York Knicks, I think, are number 1. When they are good, my God, is the NBA just so much fun. Number 2, I think it's the Chicago Bulls. Notice how it's 2 big cities. When the Chicago Bulls are good, life is good. Can I remind you about that first few games to start the season when it was DeMar DeRozan and Alonzo Ball? Man, that was fun, man. Vucevic is a very valid center, but they should have got the value for him and reset. I'm not saying Vucevic is a bad player, but they should have reset. There was no need in getting him. He didn't fit their timeline. Didn't fit their timeline at all. And then it's the Detroit Pistons. When those three teams are good, the NBA is at its best. Okay? So now let's move on to our final loser of the weekend. This one was pretty easy, and I don't want to linger on them because what's there to talk about? It's the New Orleans Pelicans firing their head coach, Willie Green. And unfortunately, somebody needs to say it. Willie Green was scapegoated because of Zion Williamson. I've given up on Zion. I did not get pranked this time around when I saw Zion was skinny. I said, skinny Zion, fat Zion, doesn't matter. Does not matter. This team traded. Okay, let me just say this very quickly. Please pay attention. Please pay attention. Please, please, please. I need everybody to just peel those ears and pay attention. The Pelicans are 30th in points scored per game. They are 25th in rebounds. They are 30th in assists. They are 30th in blocks. They are 27th in field goals made, 28th in field goal percentage, 24th in three-pointers made, 25th in free throws made, 29th in true shooting, and 29th in defensive rebounds. Now, here's my final major point about this garbage, useless franchise. You hired Joe Dumars to be your president of basketball operations. Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars. When I saw that report, I said, this is over. This is over. This is over. This is over. I'm very familiar with Joe Dumars. I'm very familiar with him. He won 2 championships with the Bad Boys. Goated player. You know what he was good at being a GM for 2 years for the Pistons, right? He went ahead, drafted Tayshaun Prince, right? We got lucky. And then he drafted Darko Milicic. He drafted Darko freaking Milicic over Carmelo Anthony, over Dwayne Wade, over Chris Bosh, over all of these players. Not just that. He gave Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva a combined $100 million. Not just that. He gave Josh freaking Smith $60 million and then waived him. Paid him to leave. The Pistons were paying Josh Smith until 2020. Did you guys know that? Josh Smith, who signed his contract in like 2013 with the Pistons, was getting paid by the Pistons $5 million a year until 2020. COVID. The Pelicans have no direction. They have pieces. They have no directions. There's a couple teams in the NBA right now that I think should just have a straight up fire sale. Only a couple. I think number one, the Dallas Mavericks need to just blow it up. Keep Coop, blow it the hell up. Blow it up. Another team is the New Orleans Pelicans. They have a lot of pieces that a lot of teams could use. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to say. Thank you, Solo in the Twitch chat. I appreciate you for reminding me. Joe Dumars got the job in New Orleans. You know what the first thing this guy did? He traded their first round pick for next year to the Atlanta Hawks. There was a report that you can just go ahead and do me a favor and find, because the quote is hilarious. Big Joe Dumars called up the Atlanta Hawks GM, said, yeah, we'd like to give you our first round pick. And he said, what? Are you serious? He said, yeah. And he said, what do you want? Okay. The fan base has given up on this team. The players have given up on this team. I think it's time. We need Seattle back, right? I think it's time. I think it's time. I can't do it with the New Orleans Pelicans. This is a poverty franchise. They can't stay healthy for the life of them. They can't obtain good talent. It's not Willie Green's fault. It's not Willie Green's fault. Now, I don't know how great of a coach he is, but he was scapegoated. Again, he was scapegoated. I will say Jeremiah Fears has looked great, but I think the Pelicans are horrible. I think they need to have a fire sale. I think you need to trade Sadiq Bey. Hell, we'll take him back in Detroit. Why not? Trade Herb Jones, right? Trade Missy. Trade Trey Murphy. He's been underperforming this year anyways. DeJounte Murray's still out. Jordan Poole sucks. Derek Queen has looked very good. I'll give him credit. And Zion Williamson, I fully give up. This franchise is poverty. I can't do it anymore. I can't keep looking at the Pelicans and thinking that this is the year. This is the year. This is the year. Would you believe that Zion Williamson is still 25? I can't believe that. I'm sorry, Pelicans fans, if there are any. I don't know. When I watch the games, the arenas are dead empty. Yeah, the Pelicans are this will be the last time they are my loser of the weekend. I have not been a fan. I've not been a fan. Sorry, I didn't mean Trey Murphy. I meant Herb Jones has been underperforming. Trey Murphy's their like one bright spot. That's my apologies. I always get him confused. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you're supposed to do when your best player is always hurt. I don't know. Blow it up. Blow it up. I'm sorry. Blow it up. You could not be 2-11 and then Joe Dumars literally came out after he traded that first round pick and said what? He said, it's not about wins or losses with this team. That's what he said. It's not about wins or losses. That's what that dude said. All right, guys, listen, man. That's today's episode. It's a long podcast. Wasn't expecting it to drag for 52 minutes. I want to say before I end, TikTok, we're going to be live on Twitch still. If you guys want to come and hang out, we're still live on Twitch. YouTube, we're also still live on Twitch. At least they're better than the Wizards. Even that's tough to say. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, follow if you're on TikTok, follow if you're on Twitch. We're still going to be live on Twitch. We are going to be ending the podcast on YouTube and Twitch. And podcast listeners, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review for those of you that are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I appreciate everybody so much again. Tomorrow will not be live, unfortunately. I have a basketball game tonight, and I won't be getting back until very late. So with that, y'all, we're still live on Twitch, everybody. I got nothing left to say except for thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. All right.